My name is Rachel Pradarelli, and I am a family nurse practitioner, a women's wellness coach, a yoga teacher, and a meditation and mindfulness teacher as well.
Can you tell me a little bit about your own mental health journey?
Yes, Michael. Oh my gosh. A journey that continues also.
Right.
That is ongoing. But my goodness, it feels like I've been through quite a bit when we talk about mental health. I feel like I first became aware of what was going on with my mental health, more so when I was actually working in clinic as a nurse practitioner, and experiencing like severe burnout. And that was accompanied by anxiety, chronic stress, depression, suicidal ideation, disordered eating patterns also. So kind of like this perfect storm. Um, yeah. And so um, that's kind of what, when you first asked that question, that's the time period that pops into my head. But I feel like it's been like stress and anxiety have been things that I have struggled with, or lived with, had experience with, even before that, like in high school and in college, as well. Um, yeah.
So now, with can you tell me a little bit about what you do with yoga and all the other techniques?
Yeah. That's an excellent question. Um, and I should say, coming back to like where I am now with mental health, it's not like, all of these things have disappeared.
Right.
More so it's kind of like my relationship to them has changed. And that is for various reasons. Like leaving, for example, leaving my work environment was step one for me, to even have the time and space to breathe and really look at what was going on, instead of stuffing these things down and suppressing them. Um, and so that kind of space was my first step. And I had been practicing yoga and meditation for quite some time, even leading up to that kind of like peak of where I was at, kind of in the depth of my mental health issues. But I would say that my relationship to yoga and meditation changed as well. That evolved over, when I did leave the clinical world, and deepened my practices in both of those. One by, doing my yoga teacher training, which in and of itself was an in-depth process of self-reflection and an invitation to do that, um, to kind of reframe, it's sit with what you are experiencing, instead of trying to run from it or be critical about it. And really it was like that mindset shift, that really helped me move forward in my healing journey. And so, specifically, I really connected with yin yoga. Um, that is a style, that is, I feel like, is not as common as others. People are always like, what's yin?
Right.
Yeah. And so I want to just take a minute to describe what that is. It's a very gentle, beginner friendly, slow paced style of yoga that involves, seated and lying down postures only, that are held for longer periods of time. So like 3 to 5 minutes at a time, instead of like quickly moving from one pose to another like other styles do. And why this works so beautifully, to cultivate, more self-awareness, um, and this, self-acceptance of wherever you are, what you're experiencing, is because of the space that it creates, for you to be still, to sit and be still, which is so hard for so many of us to do. For many reasons, right? It's like we're in this culture that's go, 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 and everything telling us to be like that, to be busy, when really there's so much strength and power and access available to us when we are able to get still, be quiet, and be with ourselves. And that may be, that's not to say it's easy, especially when you're first building that muscle. That can be really challenging, but also bringing compassion to yourself is going to help that process so much. Being gentle with yourself, and it's a space for you to not only connect with your body, the sensations in your body, but also to be the witness and the observer of the thoughts that are going on in your head, which will inevitably come up, and just noticing them, being curious about them. And that helps with the detachment part of it. I feel like, Michael, so many of us run around with these constant thoughts, in our heads, and we become identified with them, like as if we are that thought. And that can be quite debilitating, because the truth is that we are not our thoughts. We experience them, we have them. But when we're able to create that separation, you place yourself to be in a position to respond instead of react. And much of our life is like react, autopilot, just like one thing
Yeah.
after another. A thought is leading to an emotion, which leads to how we act or behave. And so when you do create that separation, that space, and build that awareness muscle, you can see and feel an emotion as it's coming up, and then choose, okay, how am I going to respond to this? What is my next step? You're in a place of power. And that's why personally, I believe that self-awareness is the ultimate form of self-empowerment in that sense. And so yin is a beautiful space for us to do that, to begin to cultivate that, with curiosity and compassion. So yeah, that's a long-winded response to that.
No, I know for me, I always feel like go, 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 need to do everything nonstop, but there's more of a stress of if I calm down and relax,
Yeah.
that's not good for me. So how can people just take a moment and try to relax?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious what you mean by that. Can you tell me a little bit more? Like when you do calm yourself down, that also doesn't feel like that's what you should be doing. Is that what you're saying? Kind of?
Correct. So it
Yeah.
feels like I'm in my comfort zone when things are going crazy, and if I relax, I'm not prepared for the next thing or stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Michael. That is more clear. And I would say that you are not alone in that. There's a couple reasons why I think that that is the case. One has to do with, again, what we're familiar with. Like we are, if especially if you are used to that, like go, 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 I need to be doing things all day long. That's kind of where um, that's how you are living your life. And so that is something that's familiar. It's familiar to your body, it's familiar in your brain, it's what it knows. And so it feels safe. And so when we do slow down, when we do take the time to rest, when we are still, the brain is like, Michael, what are you doing? Like we have X, Y, and Z to get done. Like, what are you doing sitting here? It's your brain protecting you, right? Like it wants something that's familiar. That's totally normal to experience discomfort with that, right? And that's kind of where that stems from, I think. Um, and of course, another thing that I'll say is that of course it's important to be an active participant in your life, right? Like, of course, there's things that we have to get done,
Yeah.
that we want to get done, whether that's in our business, that's family, within relationships. And so there is a role for planning and preparing and executing, of course. But I think that when we are able to, um, you know, schedule if we need to, which I find, and I find this to be the case working with my clients and what I've experienced, with patients also, when you're able to literally set aside time, and that can be 5 minutes, that can be 2 minutes, where you are in whatever form stillness works for you or looks like for you. And that could just be literally taking a breath, like sitting down, taking a conscious breath in and out through your nose, Um, taking a few rounds of those. Maybe it is doing one yin yoga pose. It doesn't have to be this elaborate, anything. Um, that's when we can connect to our true selves. And also, that is where the space of creativity resides. And so, it actually helps us to be more productive and helps us to take action steps when we get clarity, and we know our next move that's determined from a space of stillness and love and peace, instead of like, yeah, maybe being lost in our thoughts or emotions, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is it to take care of both mental health and physical health at the same time?
Hmm. That's such a good question. Yeah, because we absolutely can't separate them, right?
Right.
It is they, we often hear about the mind body connection, and it's like, what does that mean? Um, I think, and that's kind of shifted for me over time. And as I've gone down my own healing journey, I have come to realize that mental health is actually the driver, of so many conditions physically. That's often, you know, some whatever's going on mentally, emotionally, spiritually often shows up and manifests physically. And so I have prioritized my mental health, over my physical health, I would say, because they're connected. I've
Yeah.
noticed, and this is, a pattern even when I was, at the peak of my depression. Um, how I was feeling in my body was horrendous. And I had like chronic hip pain and, like I said, like the disordered eating patterns also. Um, those are directly related to what is going on, with our mental health. And so once that started to improve, once my relationship with myself improved, like how I was treating myself, um, acting from a place of self-love and self-acceptance, you know, it's interesting how the physical health will naturally follow,
Yeah.
follow suit. And so they're definitely, inseparable, totally interconnected. Um, but as far as like, yeah, which one to prioritize or, what do I do? It's like we almost can't also prioritize at the same time because they are connected. And so, again, being more curious about that and seeing and really connecting, giving yourself the space and permission to look into, okay, what is it that I need? Like, do I feel like this is more of an emotional, issue, or is this more of like a physical ailment, and being able to act um, from a place of curiosity as far as like what your next step is, and just see what happens. Being curious about, if I change this, how does that affect my mental health, my emotional health, and my physical health? And kind of like from a experimental standpoint almost. Yeah.
How does helping others help your own healing process?
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's everything. Like it's so that's so beautiful. And actually was something I was recently reflecting on, Michael. So it's interesting you asked me that. Is like, I feel like it's our natural instinct when we learn something about ourselves and notice a change that is empowering, and notice a change that, um, you know, that's serving us. It's almost like our natural instinct to want to share that with others and help others that are in maybe a similar situation, or, um, and it's interesting, even like preparing, like my podcast sessions, or, preparing notes for an upcoming session with a client, and or going through and recommending, certain affirmations, like that is helpful for me, like that is therapeutic for me as well. Like it's because it's a constant, like, I had said in the beginning, it is a constant ongoing journey. Like we are constantly evolving based on what we experience, what we go through. um and so it's never like a one and done. Like, okay, I'm here, I've accepted myself. Like, no, because that can change in like 5 minutes. But it's gaining the tools and the methods and the strategies and having those on hand for when those hard moments do come up. Again, it's like that changing, it's that shift in relationship to whatever it is that you're experiencing, whether that's depression, anxiety, disordered eating, whatever it is, hard body image days. Like, how do I get through that? How am I able to be with this, accept, surrender, and move forward? Um, and so, yeah, circling back, it's in the development of like the programs that I offer, and structuring out the yin sessions and whatnot, like that, going through that process of preparing is therapeutic for me. And then also being able to share and connect that with someone else who is, in need of support and wanting support, um, goes back to this, our natural desire for connection and like our natural state of being. And so, yeah, it's beautiful.
Have you seen your clients' confidence level rise as they go through the process?
Yes. I love that. Yeah. And that's one of the main things also that I focus on in my programs is confidence, and feeling comfortable and empowered in your skin. And so, and it can even be, Michael, like certain questions that we dig into in our sessions, for example, to like see a light bulb turn on, or to see a shift from this ultra critical perspective to, I'm curious about this, and hey, this came up and I did this, with respect to that. So seeing that shift in mindset, I think makes such a big difference in how they approach life, how they go about in their work, how they show up in relationships. Um, and so it's really beautiful to see. And it always is, again, it comes back to, this is an ongoing, you know, confidence is a skill that we build, right? It actually isn't something that we're born with. It's something that I think a lot of us think that it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
you think back to like middle school, and it's like, oh, that person was really confident. And it's like, oh, I don't have that, and then that becomes a story or a narrative that we tell ourselves, until we start to challenge and question that. Like, wait, I do actually want to be confident. Like, I want to feel that, and I can. So sometimes that is even the first step too. I find that a lot of clients um hadn't believed that, like hadn't thought, oh, I can be confident if I want to. Like, that is something that I can change. So that being the first step, you believing that it is possible, even if it seems, way off in left field at this point, that's okay. But knowing that is a possibility, that we can rewire, we can unlearn patterns and form new ones. Um, that's a possibility, and that shift, I feel like, is the first big one, towards embodying self-confidence. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
Oh, yes. Oh my God. I am constantly working at it, which is something that I've learned to love. Like, I feel like at first it was, like exhausting, and that critical voice was still like really prominent. But that has died down, and my healthy voice, I feel like, is always at the forefront. Not always, but more often than not. And so that's something that I enjoy. And what it looks like for me, Michael, I start my day, before even getting out of bed, I start by taking a few moments of stillness and quietness. If you want to call that meditation, great. If not, just stillness and connecting, going inward. Um, and I start with also some breath work as well, which helps to regulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which gives us a sense of relaxation, tells our body that we're safe, that we're okay, we can move about, and be safe. And then usually some gentle yin yoga as well. And of course, when we go to brush our teeth, I also do a lot of mirror work as well. And that really, sometimes that term could be like like, what is that? And or can be thrown out a lot, and it's like intimidating, but it's really nothing other than just like looking at yourself in the mirror, giving yourself eye contact and saying whatever um, statements are empowering to you. So, and that's all that positive affirmations are is a statement that empowers you, that resonates with you, that feels accessible. Um, and that's literally how we rewire our brains. That's how neuroplasticity works, which is our brain adapting to a new pattern. And so that's how the new neural pathways are strengthened, um, and the old ones die off. So it really does matter what it is that we're saying to ourselves, what it is that we're thinking, what we're saying out loud, what we're saying to others, about ourselves. And so that has helped me significantly. And also I do journaling as well. And that tends to be like the end of the day kind of thing. Um, but I feel like those are the highlights of what I do. Um, and connecting with others too. That was something that I found to be absent in my life when I was experiencing, pretty severe bouts of depression and anxiety and chronic fatigue. I didn't feel the desire to connect with people, which is quite normal when you're experiencing those. But it's amazing when you do open up, when you are connected to yourself and your source and your being. Again, that natural flow of connection there's space for that. There's energy. Energy is diverted. Before it was, lost in thoughts that were disempowering, and of course, there's not going to be energy to connect with other people because that's where your attention is. And so when we do shift that attention, that's when we open up space for connection again. Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
Ah, beautiful soul, I would say you are not alone. You are not alone. I know that may be cliche, but truly, I feel like so often, and this will obviously vary based on what everyone's going through, that's going to be unique, but oftentimes we can feel so isolated when we do go through really tough emotional or mental health bouts in our lives, and we can totally feel alone, like no one else can understand. And yes, your situation is unique, of course, but knowing that we all go through this as human beings, like this is the whole project of being a human being, is like, how do we live and manage and navigate these challenging emotions and situations and thoughts that come up, that you're not alone, and that there is support, um, and that if this situation is not how you want your life to be living, that there absolutely is a way for you to change. But also knowing that, as difficult and as challenging as it is to be with challenging emotions, they're
Yes.
also there to tell us something. Like they are always there for us to learn, to show us, what it is that we need right now. So also befriending that, like befriending the depression you're experiencing, the stress you're experiencing, because it's your body, trying to tell you something. And sometimes that can be hard to know, like what exactly that
Mhm.
is. And that's why, connecting with a professional can be really helpful for processing that. Um, but bringing some kindness and compassion to this whole project of being a human being. And um, yeah, that's what I'd say.
So, where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh my gosh. I, I more recently started broadening who I reach out to teens and preteens around the topic of body acceptance, self-acceptance,
Yeah.
building awareness, and self-confidence. And so, I kind of see it shifting out towards youth, and whether that's through, of course, like one-on-one, I really love, but like group sessions, teen empowerment workshops, which I've started to implement, and I kind of see it heading that way. And seeing that shift in confidence, in and self love, self worth in particularly women, and seeing how that can impact our world. And I see that being a beautiful, bright light moving forward. Yeah.
So how can people reach out and learn more?
Yeah, so you can connect with me via email, which is at tranquilopawellness@gmail.com. And we can write that out
I'll
because that
make a
might be hard to
graphic.
spell.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And also on my website, tranquilopawellness.com, there's more information about my programs, about me, as well, working with you and how, how I can serve you. Um, and you can also follow me on YouTube, my YouTube channel. That's Tranquila Paw Wellness also. And through Spotify, through my podcast, the Compassionate Curiosity podcast also. So those are a couple options, yeah, to connect.